All righty, let's get going. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being with us. I'm David Van Ho from Avalara, and I am just going to pass it right over to Teresa Donahue from the Volusion side.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. My name is Teresa Donahue, Brand Engagement Marketing Manager here at Volusion. At Volusion, we want to ensure our merchants receive an all-in-one e-commerce experience so that they have all the tools and support they need to successfully grow their businesses. We are able to do this by partnering with experts like Avalara. Doing more with less in 2023 is essential for businesses, and we want to share with you how Avalara's automated products can free up bandwidth for your team. Before we get started today, I have a couple housekeeping items to go through. If you have questions throughout the webinar, please submit those during the presentation in the chat section at the bottom of your screen. We will be answering questions live in the chat, but if we don't have time to address all the questions today, we will follow up with you directly via an email tomorrow. We'll also send out a link to watch the recording of today's webinar in a follow-up email that will be sent out tomorrow. To learn more about how Avalara can help you and your business, we have included links and contact information within this webinar, so stay tuned. And we'll also include that information in the follow-up email that we send out. Today, we have Kate and Jamie, tax compliance professionals from Avalara, who are going to walk you through two powerful products that will help make tax determination faster, easier, and more accurate. All right, let's get started. I'll turn it over to you, Kate.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Always excited to work with the Volusion team, and I've had the pleasure of meeting many of their merchants over the last couple of years, so it's been great. So our agenda for today is to talk to you a little bit about why sales tax matters in the first place. We're going to talk about the term nexus and what that means and helping you understand where you should be collecting tax. And then we are going to highlight two of Avalara's core solutions, which is our AvaTax, our tax engine, and our exemption certificate management software. And you are going to see a deep dive look at the software itself from Jamie on the second half. So a little bit about Avalara. We are coming up on our 20th anniversary. So very excited to reach that milestone. And what we have done over the course of these 20 years is we have listened to our customers and their needs. And we have grown and expanded across the globe, as well as our portfolio of services and products. And so we do pride ourselves as a business that can offer a complete compliant solution for our customers. So starting things off, why does sales tax matter? Well, not surprisingly, it has to do with money. So next to property taxes, in most states and other areas, state and local sales tax revenue is indeed a big component to keep those states running. And so we have 45 states today, as well as Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., that have laws around sales tax and the required collection. I hate to say this word that begins with C and rhymes with rovid. That was a big popular thing over the last few years. And now we don't hear that COVID word too often anymore. But the truth is we really did see some effects and states they're experiencing some deficits. And so as the economies change and things are happening, of course, states are going to react to that. And so states are very interested in recouping some of the money that they have lost over the last few years. So the first thing to help you as a seller understand where your sales tax obligations start is this term nexus. So nexus is your business's legal obligation to first get registered, and then 2, collect, and 3, remit the money back to that taxing jurisdiction. Now, there are many different ways that your business can create nexus. A lot of people think about having a physical presence. So perhaps where you yourself are located, if you have a storefront or where you operate your business from or have employees maybe in a neighboring state. Those are ways you could have physical nexus. But as you can see here, there's actually other types of nexus as well. And so the most common really is economic nexus. So about 5 years ago, there were some major laws that went into effect that started these economic nexus laws. Won't go into too many details on the other types of nexus here, but it is good for you to know. And if you want to learn more about nexus, you can look at Avalara's website and we can take you on a deep dive of each of these nexus types. So as I mentioned, where you're located, where your employees live, those are physical types of nexus, but it's also important to understand things that are a little less obvious. So things like where your inventory lives. If you are selling using a marketplace such as Amazon and have fulfillment centers where your inventory lives, that may, depending on the state's laws, create nexus. As well as if you use drop shipping, there's some interesting things that happen between the manufacturer and you and the customer to make sure that these different things might be creating nexus for you as a business, as well as things like attending trade shows. As I mentioned, inventory in other marketplaces, it's really important to know if you are a seller that is selling both through your Volusion site or interested in becoming a Volusion customer, but if you're also selling on a marketplace, there are some unique things that we can help you understand. And as you can see here on this slide, it talks about some of the states that have different laws around your sales being shipped to that state. It may be a combination of you hitting nexus by sales that are coming directly from your Volusion site, as well as sales that you are having through one of the various marketplaces that you're selling on. So we will help you understand that and walk you through that, but very good information for you to know. So when it comes to understanding nexus and knowing where you need to register, the next really important step is making sure that you are charging the correct sales tax rate. There are 16,000 different taxing jurisdictions in the United States. So most people think of a tax at the state level, but many, many places have city, county, special, and local jurisdictional tax. And zip codes are for the Postal Service. Zip codes are not really aligned to sales tax rates. So you can have a zip code that may have 2, 3, 4 plus different taxing jurisdictions in that single zip code. And so it's important to use something like Avalara's tax engine or another very granular solution that is going to pick up all the different local rates. You do not want to get a tax notice from a state saying, where's the rest of our money and how can we get this to the local or the special or the city? So we've talked about nexus, we've talked about rates. The next thing we're going to talk about and focus on is exemption certificates. So if any of you are selling to tax exempt customers, this is very important for you to understand some basic information about it. So it's all in the exemption certificate. You as the seller need to be able to prove why you are not charging tax to a customer. States are very, very specific in regards to what is required on these forms. There are over 1,000 different exempt forms across the US, and we need to make sure that there is that state specified requirements on that exemption form, including a reason for the exemption. Shown here on this slide, all the orange states are states today that have exempt sales included in one way, shape, or form for their economic nexus. So for example, in North Carolina, where I live, even if you're selling to some of end consumers where you do need to charge tax, but then you're also selling to perhaps a reseller or an exempt entity such as a government or a nonprofit or whatever the case might be, it's important for you to understand that those sales, even though you're not charging tax, those sales could contribute to you triggering North Carolina's economic nexus requirements for that state. As I mentioned, it's really important for you, the seller, to understand what your role is in this. So if you have cross-nexus in a state and you are selling to exempt customers, the burden of proof is really on you to make sure that you have that certificate in place. You do not want to end up owing any fines or penalties if the state does audit you and you don't have the certificate for, let's say, a customer that you've been selling to for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You certainly don't want to have to owe money that you never needed to collect just because you have, say, an expired certificate from that customer. And speaking of customers, we want to make sure your customers have a good experience. Of course, they don't want to pay tax if they are exempt, and they want to be able to prove that to you. But it's important that you have a good process in place to make sure that they have a great customer experience to be able to get those certificates to you. And so you'll see with Jamie in here in just a few minutes, as she takes you through our exemption certificate software, to show you how easy it is for your customers to provide that certificate for you. Speaking of providing the certificate, Volusion is such an amazing partner to work with. They are one of very few e-commerce checkout partners here at Avalara that actually allow and assist to have a little URL link at the checkout that will take the customer, your customers, to Avalara's Cert Express pathway for your customer to be able to upload the certificate at checkout. What a wonderful experience for your customer to be able to log in to their account through Volusion and be able to submit that certificate without having to call or do anything like that. It's all done in real time, and then you will see it on the back end as the certificate comes through. So as I mentioned, Avalara's exemption certificate management software, we call that ECM, is indeed the best in class solution out there. We make it extremely easy on your customers to submit this information, and we make it very robust for you to stay compliant. And now we're going to take a deep dive and take a look. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you, Kate. Today I'm going to show you first and foremost our homepage here of AvaTax, and I'm going to show you some things within AvaTax, as well as we house our returns and our exemption certificate management solution, ECM, all within the same UI. So easy to use, easy to set up, and communicate back and forth between Volusion. So a lot of what I'm going to show you today, since we do work in the background, a lot of what I'm going to be showing you is the setup of our solutions, because once you do purchase that pre-built connector with Volusion, we are working in the background on a real-time basis to determine tax. And some of the things that we look at is, first off, where you're collecting based on how you've set up our system, what you're selling, and who you're selling to. So on a real-time basis, as orders are coming in, we are automatically looking at, first, are you collecting tax there, or do you have Nexus based on how you've set up the system? Then we look at, is that customer taxable or exempt based on if you have a valid exemption certificate in our ECM solution. And then we look at the ship from, the ship to determine determine the sourcing, but we also use, as Kate described, that latitude and longitude to determine the most accurate tax rate. Then we look at each line item of what you're selling to determine if you have mapped, if there's any unique taxability based on how you've mapped your item codes to our good and service codes. And I'll show you all of this here in a little bit. But what happens is that data, the tax information, is sent back to Volusion and then is also recorded here in AvaTax. So once all that data is flowing and we are recording all your sales, we also are tracking your economic nexus with this heat map. So we know all of the state's sales thresholds as well as transaction thresholds. We also know if states are including exempt sales or excluding exempt sales in their thresholds and whether you meet them or not. We let you know in orange if you have exceeded your economic nexus threshold in that particular state, by how much, whether it was for the sales or the transactional threshold, and for what period. We also let you know in yellow that you are approaching the economic nexus threshold by 80%, but you haven't quite hit that 100%. If you do hit the economic nexus thresholds, you also have the ability to come here to this hyperlink where it says register in the new places, and you can purchase registrations from Avalara and we would register on your behalf for those states. Once you do get all of the registration confirmations, we even let you know how to add those new locations. But that is one of the parts of the setup. So the goal would be, once you set us up, the goal would be to set everything up one time, unless you do need to add additional states or you're adding new product categories, things of that nature. So one of the first steps would be to set up your company profile. If you have multiple FEINs, you can set up multiple company profiles and tax profiles. So the first thing would be to set up where you collect. And it's a simple click of a button. We just provide you with all the states and you click which states that you are collecting in or are registered in. The next thing would be to determine what you sell and mapping those item codes with our goods and service codes. And I've gotten logged out, I apologize, but as we're getting logged back in here, we provide you with the ability to do a search for all of our goods and service codes within this tax code search link. And there's various ways to search for all our goods and service codes. And this is a growing list based on our customers' needs. There's thousands upon thousands of goods and service codes that our tax professionals have researched, maintain, and update all in the background. And you can look at each section here and choose, or you can enter in the search bar here, and we pulls up all of our codes with a description for this particular code. It is cloud services or software as a solution. As you can see here, we have a many array of options here. And if you actually want to determine if, for example, this cloud services, software as a service agreement, business use, if you want to see if this code is actually going to match the way you feel that your items need to be taxed, then you can build out a taxability matrix to determine if this is the actual code that you need to, if this is the code that you need for your services. And I apologize, I stopped sharing there for just 1 second. A little technical difficulty. But as you can see, we can copy in the tax code, select all the states to determine the exempt status. As you can see here, there's a exempt status in Alabama, and there is a reduced rate in Arizona. reduced rate in Connecticut, and a lot of exempt in a lot of states. Take particular look at Colorado, because I am going to show you an example of that transaction here in just a second. So you can do this on the Volusion side, but it's as simple as mapping your item code numbers or categories with our tax codes on the Volusion side. And you're only mapping those items or services that are outside of tangible personal property. If you have tangible personal property, you do not have to map those items. It's automatically going to pull our tangible personal property code. So that is really a look on how you'll set up the system. You can also add your company locations, your multiple ship from locations, and some other customized settings if you need to, but that is the general aspect of setting up the calculation portion. Now let's go into a sample transaction. So in our transaction, so as I stated, we are recording the transaction on a real-time basis, all the data, summary data and details into Volusion, but it's also recorded in AvaTax, which I'm going to show you an example of a transaction in here just in 1 second. But first, we have a few different document statuses. And you can choose from committed. So as you're passing the data, you either have committed, uncommitted for those transactions that are coming through. Uncommitted means that it is a quote, an estimate. It's an order form, but it hasn't been a finalized sale yet. Committed indicates that it is a finalized sale ready to be reported to the states. Now, both of these are still, you have the ability to make changes to these transactions up until the point that they are marked locked. If you are utilizing us for the return service, we are going to lock these transactions down when we are actually reporting them to the states, and we can no longer make changes to them. You can also void out transactions as well. But let's take a look at a sample transaction here. So as you can see there, we have the document code that was passed over, as well as this is a committed transaction. There was not an exemption applied based on this customer code that was passed. We provide you with the ship from Washington here. And as you can see, the latitude and longitude coordinates are provided for you as well. And we're shipping to Denver, Colorado. Again, the latitude and longitude are showing. We provide you with the summary of the totals tax that are due. And then we provide you with each line item detail. So for this first line item, we're selling tangible personal property. As you can see here, it pulls our tangible personal property code, provides you with the determination. Are you collecting tax here? Yes. Is your customer taxable? Yes. Is the product or service taxable? Yes. So then we provide you with the state level, the county, city, and any special jurisdictions along with the total tax down at the bottom. We also, for line 2, I pulled the SAS code that I showed you in our tax code search. And if you remember, it was exempt based on being sold to Colorado. So are you collecting tax here? Yes. Is your customer taxable? Yes. Is the products or service taxable? No. So we would send back 0 tax. So this is the overview of the calculation portion. So next, let's go to the returns. So if you do choose us for the returns, we're keeping track of all the data. We will be filing on your behalf. So you're going to sign off on power of attorneys. And in the setup, and hopefully this is a one-time aspect of it as well, unless you need to add new states, but you're going to add all the forms that you're filing today and any new ones if you're getting new registrations. And then once you're live with us on a monthly basis, you're going to come in to our approve returns section. And by the 5th calendar day of the month, we're going to provide you with all of your liability on each form. It's going to be all populated on the form. It's the only responsibility that you have would be to come in here, make any adjustments. So say you have received an exemption certificate after the fact and you need to update that and make that adjustment. You can come up in here and make that adjustment. You'll reconcile against your GL to make sure the numbers all match. And then you would come in here and approve each form. Now, if you don't approve or reconcile before the 10th calendar day, regardless if that falls on a Saturday or Sunday, then at 5 p.m. Pacific time, we are locking this down and approving on your behalf. So we ensure that we are filing and making the payments in a timely manner. We then make one ACH pool between the 11th and the 14th for all of your liability. And then between the 11th and the 30th, we're dispersing those payments to the jurisdictions as well as the forms. And then we are also providing you at the very end of the month, the PDF copies of those returns and payment confirmations. We also can handle your notices. You'll still be getting those since you're still the liable party, but we are filing on your behalf. But we, once you do get those notices from the states, you'll just come into our notices portal, upload those. Our notices team will work with the states, provide you with all the data, but we'll work with the states on your behalf to resolve any of those notices. We also provide you with accruing returns for those returns that you might have that are quarterly, semi-annually, annually, et cetera. And we also give you a little extra compliance review to let you know if you have set up somewhere where you collect, but we're not filing that form, so you may be collecting but not remitting. So that is the returns process. So now let's dive into the exemption certificate management solution. Just like with all of our other solutions and services, there is a setup process. The nice thing is, once you do purchase our ECM solution, you have the ability to bulk upload your exempt customers as well as your current exempt certificates. We also have an arm of our exemption certificate management solution called our managed services. A lot of things that you can do in here, they are the #1 users of our ECM solution and have the internal expertise to and experience to be able to manage your certificates, provide campaigns to your customers to get expired certificates, invalid, missing, or if you just want to start over at time of implementation on collecting new certificates, that managed services team can do those actions for you on your behalf if you don't have the resources or, again, the expertise internally. But what I'm going to show you are some of the areas that are helpful in the management aspect of it. So once all of your exempt customers and those exempt certificates are imported and all the data is flowing through, we provide you with this lovely insights over here that lets us know what is valid, what is invalid, what is expired, and what is invalid, as I said, or missing. The goal is to have this circle to be majority green, if not all green. Now, we know for the expired aspect of it, we know the state's laws. So for example, Florida expires every year. Texas, for example, never expires, but other states may expire every 3 years, some every 5 years. And again, we know all of those rules internally. So you can take a look at these insights and run a campaign to get those invalid certificates. So a reach out to those customers in a bulk banner to get those invalid or expired or any missing certificates. We also have these tasks up here that provide you with the certificates expiring within 30 days, those incoming certificates for your review to look at to see if they are valid or invalid. So if we take a look at one of these, just to show you an example, this one, for example, doesn't look like an exemption certificate to me. It looks like a hotel reservation. So you can easily come in and review and then save it as invalid because this is not a valid form. Now, we also provide you with some great resources to help you and take a lot of the guesswork out. For the tasks, we also have the missing certificates as well. But if we come down here to these resources, we have an array of information that we provide you. We provide you with a lot of answers of frequently asked questions. A lot of them are around resale certificates, but by each state, we provide these frequently asked questions, the answer to them, the layman's terms explanation, easy to understand explanation, along with the citations from the state. We also have the tax laws by state, the exempt entities by state, all the different types of exempt entities and whether they're exempt or not. And we even have all of the exemption certificate library as well by state. So it's a great resource for you to, again, make sure that you have the right forms and you're collecting the right way and in the right states, et cetera. So what I'm going to show you at the end here, first, I'm going to show you just real quick some of the great tools that you can also use in an audit situation. Now we have in every field that we go into, you can do these filters. Now, you can say, for example, that an auditor comes in from, let's just say, Alabama, and they're wanting to look at your resale certificates, a subset of your resale certificates. Now, we can pull these and then export them along with the certificate images to provide to that particular auditor. So it cuts down the research time and ensures that you're providing all valid certificates to that particular auditor. Now I'm going to show you just one example of an experience that your customers are going to have. Now, just keep in mind what I'm about to show you to request a certificate. This can be done in a campaign or with multiple customers. Like for the expiring customers, you can send out a bulk request. I just want to show you one example on the experience that your customers have. So in this example, my Zone Enterprises customer, if you see here with their profile, we're looking at all of these tax regions that we expect an exemption certificate for. We have quite a few valid certificates already on file, but we have this California one that is invalid. So I'm going to make a request to Zone Enterprises for that certificate in California. Now, keep in mind, you can download these forms and mail them, but I'm going to show you the email way. You can choose a default cover letter or you can build your own. I always like to include a copy of the certificate form in the request, and then you can specify the region, which is California, and the reason. Now, our reasons, we have about every reason listed here. At time of setup, you can make this list only applicable for those reasons that your customers are exempt. You can personalize the message, or you can just utilize the standard message here. Once you send this request, it'll go to the inbox of the recipient here, which is me. I've already sent this to myself earlier, so for the sake of time, and I will show you what the email that your clients will see, which is right here. Your customer zone enterprises will receive this email with your logo on it and a copy of the form requesting a certificate for a sales exempt status for a California because it is invalid. It asks them to go to this link, which it takes them, as Kate had briefly described earlier, to our Cert Express. So this can also be connected not only to your e-commerce, but also can make requests through the ECM portal as well. As you can see here, we're making this request for California. They can also add other exemption certificates if they would like. They also can see all their completed forms that are already on their profile based on that customer number. But what I'm going to show you real quick is the nice ease of use for your customers. We're taking the guesswork out of it for them. So we already have the territory of California. They choose, and again, this list can be just for the reasons your customers are exempt. And we simply ask them the questions that we know need to be on this California resale certificate. Then we ask them to sign it, whether it's with their mouse or their finger. So they can do it on many different, their cell phone, their iPad, desktop, whatever it may be. And the way our demo environment is set up, we auto-validate these types of forms because we are, again, taking the guesswork. We know it's a proper form, so we auto-validate it. Now, you can set up the system to where it goes into the queue for your review. So as you can see here, it goes into the completed on the customer side. But if we go over to the exemption side and we do the refresh, as you can see, it is a validated form, and all the questions that we ask have been populated on the appropriate form, along with the signature and everything. And lastly, we even have this OCR technology in which, for the majority of the Department of Revenues, we can go out to and confirm if the taxpayer ID is the right format. And as you can see here, it's incorrect format. So I can always come in and save as invalid due to the ID. And that is everything that I wanted to show today. So I'll turn it over to you, David. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. That was awesome. Really appreciate it. We've got just a few minutes left for questions. We've had a few come in. So if you are listening and you've got a question, go ahead and get it in and we will try our best to get to it. Anything we don't get to on this call, we're going to be following up via email. So no worries there. And the first one I've got here is, and Kate and Jamie, feel free to hop on and answer this. And the first one we've got is, could you talk a little bit more about setting up tax for different states in our area? Kind of what's that process like? Is it quick? Is it clicking a button, or kind of what all is entailed in that?
Yes, so I didn't.
You want to take that one, Jamie?
Yeah, so I didn't click into it, but I'm happy to briefly click into it just to show you. But as I'm going in there and showing you, it is really a click of a button. So you would simply go into settings where you collect tax, and it's a click of a button, and you would add those regions. The same goes for those states that are like Alabama, Colorado, and Louisiana. So they have locally administrated taxes. You would just have to go in and click on those locals that you're also registered in.
Awesome.
And I'll just add one more thing to that too. You know, sometimes the registration process is a pain. It's confusing. It's time consuming. And so Avalara does have a business license department that can handle all of those state registrations on behalf of our customers.
Awesome. Thank you both. Appreciate it. Next one we got is, could you speak to current tax rules for online e-commerce? Kind of how does that fall in with Nexus and collecting exemption certificates? Is there anything that's more complicated or less complicated when it comes to e-commerce selling?
It really depends on what you're selling for those tax codes, and really understanding and going through the process of implementation and understanding what you're selling, whether they're tangible personal property or there may be a unique taxability, whether there's a threshold sales tax holiday that's been applied, or like clothing, for example. If you're selling clothing, especially in the Northeast area, there's a lot of unique rulings and thresholds and exemptions when it comes to clothing. But it really depends on what you're selling. It doesn't really dependent on e-commerce versus selling like from a brick and mortar. It really just depends on the products and services on what you're mapping. But we have thousands upon thousands of goods and services codes that are growing. So likely we have content for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie.
I'll just add one more thing there too. You mentioned services. I have found a lot of Volusion customers that I've spoken with throughout the years tend to also have some sort of service like repair or installation, things like that. And so we have a sort of a law library that will help our customers take a really deep dive and really understand, like, to define what their service is in that state. And so it really allows them to get really, really deep and granular to make sure that they really are picking the right codes and billing customers according to those different state laws.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we got a minute left, so I think we've got time for one more question, and that question is, so we sell in multiple channels. Would I need multiple Avalara solutions to track my tax obligations?
No, you just need one AvaTax, and we can connect to multiple channels, whether it's e-commerce, ERPs, multiple e-commerce platforms. Most building, we have over 1,400 pre-built connectors, Volusion being one of those. And so that includes e-commerce platforms, all kinds of ERPs. So, and even if we don't have a pre-built connector, we have very comprehensive APIs that can be built to any custom solution as well. And we have thousands of clients that are using those as well.
And if you're selling on a marketplace, we also have integrations, we call those extractors, where we can pull the data from those so that if in a state where that sales counts towards your economic nexus, we'll track that for you.
Yep. Because a lot of those, even if they may be collecting and remitting on your behalf, a lot of the forms, they require you to still have that total data in there, so we can have that information for reporting.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Cool. And yeah, we got just a second left. So if someone wants to get started with Avalara, what's kind of the best way to go about that? Kate, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, sure. So absolutely. So if you are a current Volusion customer, we encourage you, to speak directly with Volusion if that's the route that you would like to go. But you are more than welcome to reach out to me directly. I work with a robust team here that can help set up a time for us to meet. And it would just basically be a 30-minute kind of a free consultation session where I'll take a deep dive into your business and help answer any questions and make sure you feel confident in that what you're doing today is working well, or if you're interested in Avalara services, we can help guide you there too.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kate. Yeah, and we're going to be sending out an email with a link to the recording. I'll make sure to include Kate's email on that as well. So if anybody wants to reach out, you'll have that email in your inbox shortly. So thanks everyone so much for joining. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Kate and Jamie. Really appreciate it. You guys both killed it. And Teresa, thanks to you as well. We love Volusion and always excited to spend some time with you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.